Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to the USN FGMC Network and SHIFA's event, Engaging with Youth Activists. My name is Carrie Walovich, and I'm the Operations and Partnerships Manager with the US Network, and I am joined by my incredible co-host, Nonia Keter, founder of SHIFA. We have a really unique and exciting mix of both students, youth activists from CCNY, as well as representatives from different member organizations from the network. So representatives from all over the US and the world that are dedicated to ending female genital mutilation / cutting, or the acronym FGMC, as well as gender-based violence. So today's workshop is a really great opportunity to explore and learn from each other, to discuss strategies and tactics for finding, engaging with, and retaining youth activists as champions for advocacy-related activities. We'll also be discussing how to craft impactful messaging and compelling stories, as well as brainstorming some ideas for how to support youth activists to provide meaningful opportunities within an advocacy organization. So Nonia, would love to hear from you. Please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and SHIFA.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction, Carrie. So hi, my name is Nonia. I'm currently studying international studies and human rights at the City College of New York. I am the founder of SHIFA, which has a mission to advocate against female genital mutilation or cutting by conducting educational advocacy workshops and trying to provide some kind of resources for women who are on campus by engaging therapists or other people, professors or mentors on campus to be informed about this subject.
Excellent. Thank you, Nonia. And before we really dig in, I would like to let everyone know that we are recording this workshop. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And if we can move on to slide 2. Excellent. So I would love to begin with introductions. If you could just state your name and organization, briefly what you hope to gain from the workshop, and in your own words, what you think makes an effective youth leader in the advocacy space. So please feel free to unmute yourself and share with the group, or if you feel more comfortable typing into the chat, that's no problem at all. So please feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like, and we can kick off this discussion.
Yeah, hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So my name is Joseph. I am treasurer of the CCNY Model UN Club. I'm here with my secretary, Vanessa Estrada. And basically like I said, our name is, we're the MUN Club at CCNY. We just basically try to immerse students in the everyday aspects of the United Nations through various simulations, as well as we try to expose them to various global events and global cultures that can help, I guess, more or less create a greater understanding of the world. What we hope to gain today from our workshop is, I guess, like I said, more exposure to a lot of various difficulties that a lot of people face in the world, as well as what we think makes a good youth leader effective is, I guess, just more, like I said, more awareness of what's going around in the world, because I feel like a lot of people don't really have a vast knowledge of everything in the world. If Vanessa, my secretary, wants to add anything.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Vanessa, as Joseph said. I think we hope to gain also more exposure to the issues, learn more about what is going on, and specifically this issue of gender violence, and what makes a youth leader effective. I would say listening, because I think listening is a key aspect of someone trying to help others, and listening. Everyone wants to be heard and make sure they are being helped the right way. So that's my take.
Thank you, Joseph and Teresa. That I really love your point about those listening skills and being there to be present and to hear and to take that in and apply it in your actions. I think that's a really important reminder to everyone. And I think a really incredible contribution. So thank you both for that.
My name's Maria Sanchez, and I'm a PhD candidate in psychology, and I am testing for various media messages that are persuasive to eradicating FGMC. I'm also a talk radio host, and this has been on my radar for 25 years. So I'm hoping that we can eradicate this in our lifetime.
Thank you, Maria. It's wonderful to have you on the call.
I can go next. So my name is Anissa, and I am the Vice President for the UNA USA chapter. In our club, we are dedicated to educating, inspiring, and mobilizing students to support the principles and the vital work of the UN and its agencies. And today, I just hope to learn more about the topic of FGMC. I have learned about it, briefly in class, but I don't think that it's spoken about enough. And in my own words, what makes a youth leader effective, I think it's attending workshops like these and really educating yourself and learning about key issues that unfortunately many people are not aware about. And then just taking, what we learn and just passing it forward and educating others so that we can truly make a difference. So thank you guys for hosting this workshop today.
Thank you, Anissa.
Hi, my name is Talatu. I'm a volunteer at Shifa Foundation, and I hope to just gain more skills and tools that will help me on a day-to-day basis as an activist who's also trying to learn more about FGM and how we can eradicate it. And in my own words, I think an effective leader is someone who's willing to learn. I think it's similar to what Anissa said, open to adding on to what you already know, attending workshops, hearing other people out, and just expanding your horizon and knowledge.
Thank you, Talatu. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so perhaps we can move on to the more meat of our workshop. And please feel free to introduce yourself through the chat. And there will be time at the end for some Q&A. And also, if you miss the opportunity to introduce yourself and would still like to, please take the opportunity during and at the end to introduce yourself and ask any questions. So I know that quite a few students are interested in learning more specifically about FGMC. We'll have a little bit of that background, and I'm also happy to provide a plethora of resources to learn more about this topic. And our discussions around advocacy and developing youth leadership is really geared towards specifically FGMC organizations. So again, we'll learn about advocacy from this lens, but I'm more than happy to provide additional resources about FGMC content-wise if those are needed. So let's dig into kind of our next piece of the workshop. Can we go to slide 3, please? So what is engagement? I thought it would be important to really kind of ground ourselves in, and define what engagement is, so we're all kind of on the same page as we move forward today. And simply put, it's getting people involved in the decisions that affect them. So when we talk about youth advocacy, specifically, and it means involving youth in every step of the process, as well as shaping and evaluating programs, the activities, policies, and service provision. So this is really essential to these resources because they need to be not just created, quote, for youth, but most importantly, with youth. Next slide, please. And some examples of some really poignant, successful, far-reaching, youth-led campaigns within the FGMC space. This is a photo. The first photo is the Youth Engagement Manifesto, which was developed by the End FGM European Network. It is an incredible resource. The European FGM Network is a excellent leader in this space. I am happy to include the link to this manifesto. It has some really great content for both youth advocates and organizations, but they've done a really comprehensive and thoughtful, campaign, for lack of a better word, about engaging youth and how we can, raise up youth voices to end FGMC globally. Another advocacy campaign many might be very familiar with. The second photo is Greta Thunberg and the School Strikes for Climate Change. Her advocacy has led to over 1.4 million young people across 300 cities worldwide to join her in highlighting the issues of climate change and global warming, and particularly how it's impacting the younger generation. This has really become an incredible example of how powerful youth voices and advocacy can be all over the world. And finally, the Stop Youth AIDS network. It's a group of young people across the UK who are speaking out and taking creative action to engage those in power, to ensure that governments, institutions, corporations, everybody in this community is working together to end AIDS by 2030, which is a sustainable development goal. And I would also welcome, please feel free to put in the chat, or you can follow up later. But if there are any other youth-led advocacy campaigns that have really stood out to people, we would love to hear those. Particularly, why they're so impactful and why they're so far-reaching. So please feel free to include those in the chat, or in our follow-up communication, share those with the group. Next slide, please. So why should organizations engage with youth activists? As we've just highlighted, youth have been at the forefront of many positive policy changes and advocacy campaigns throughout history. We know from our experiences that youth continue to be valued stakeholders today, although the degree to which youth are meaningfully engaged in these can really vary widely depending on the situation in the community. And this really brings up the central question of why we're all here today. Why should youth be engaged in policy, communication, and advocacy? And even more specifically, why is it important to involve youth in FGMC advocacy? Some may know that female genital mutilation / cutting is a global issue. It affects at least 200 million girls and women all over the world, in the United States, in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And girls below the age of 14 represent 44 million of those people who have been cut, which indicates clearly that FGMC is a young people's human rights issue. And more broadly, it's a young person's right to be involved in shaping the policies that impact their lives and their future, particularly when it comes to FGMC, as this is an issue that greatly impacts young people. Part of a rights-based approach to development is involving all stakeholders meaningfully, including youth. And not only do youth deserve to be engaged in these processes, but youth are, when they are engaged, stronger outcomes can be expected. So youth have really valuable contributions to make on a great many of subjects, including FGMC. Meaningful engagement of youth can also lead to stronger policy implementation. They're sometimes better able to identify innovative approaches and to reach their peers. So they can be a really important partner to help expand the reach of policy implementation. And their energy can yield really positive results. Again, they can offer a plethora of knowledge and creative ideas. Lastly, public participation is critical to democracy. And public participation needs to be representative of all the different groups that make up a society, youth included. We, during this workshop, we're really going to kind of take a deeper dive into how youth can better position themselves to effectively engage with policy audiences and organizations. And on the flip side, organizations, we can start brainstorming about how we can start building in these opportunities from within. So next slide, please. So what is a youth leader's role? It's a really exciting one, and at times can be a little tricky too. It's exciting to have the opportunity to interact with your peers and decision makers on important issues that are particularly affecting young people like FGMC. So meaningful youth participation has the potential to influence policymaking and result in more youth-friendly development, implementation, and financing of programs. youth are best positioned to understand the current problems facing young people and how to fix them. As a youth leader, you all have a unique opportunity to advise those older than you on issues related to youth. And many decision makers, including donors, program staff, and policymakers, want to hear what you have to say, so they can learn from you about how best to meet youth's needs. Being a youth leader can also be difficult. There are difficulties of being taken seriously by adults, unfortunately. As a youth representative at a meeting or a youth advocate in the community, you can also bear the responsibility of representing all the youth, even though, everyone is likely very aware of how diverse youth are and how many opinions vary and how complex individual needs are within this wide age group. But young people are in a really unique position to coordinate community participation, sensitively address cultural barriers, build bridges between relevant actors and their country of origin and fellow youth members. So in the FGMC advocacy space, youth can really act as cultural mediators and encourage intergenerational dialogue. Community elders often play an important role as obviously respected keepers of the traditions and are therefore key people in changing the narrative around FGMC. So, while this is the case, young people are vital to confronting and communicating existing issues in the most appropriate manner to older family members. This can be considered one of the most effective ways to change attitudes towards FGMC over time, which is often a very ingrained cultural tradition in many societies. So discussions on the involvement of youth in the work to eradicate FGMC is important to note. It also must include boys and young men as key actors. So it's relevant for all the youth, both women, men, and people that identify as non-binary. Youths are the central actors in changing the narrative around FGMC and taking a stand against this practice within their communities. So there is a huge role for youth to play in organizations and in the FGMC advocacy space. Next slide, please. So what can youth leaders do in an organization? If you're an organization and you're trying to think through some ways that youth leaders can be meaningfully engaged within your organization, they can really take on multiple roles. They can be asked to serve on advisory groups or as members of a technical working group. They can have the opportunity to give presentations to decision makers. They can regularly engage with and educate their peers on a wide range of topics and serve as leaders within their communities. Youth advocates can also serve as representatives during meetings, conferences, other events, and whether that be as well, being forward-facing on social media campaigns to raise public awareness, lending their voice to write press releases, op-eds, articles to get further awareness around particular issues like FGMC, distributing surveys to understand gaps in knowledge or resources around FGMC and specific topic areas within this topic. And again, youth advocates regularly engage with diverse audiences, and this is making sure that youth voices are heard and youth issues are addressed. Next slide, please. So at this point, we would love to open it up to the group and hear some people's thoughts. Youth leaders on the call, what engagement opportunities are you specifically looking for? And NGOs, what skills and or expertise are you looking for youth activists to fill your organization? The purpose of this specific questions are really to talk through what are some really concrete and meaningful advocacy opportunities do both sides of the aisles want to see? What are some of the gaps that youth advocates can fill, and what are youth advocates interested in filling as well? So would love to open up the floor to anyone who would like to share their ideas.
I can go first. I can speak on both. So I'll start off with NGOs. I think for skills or expertise, I don't have a lot of experience with NGOs, and of course I haven't been full-time, but through volunteer management and the internship management I've done, I think I've seen, especially with advocating against FGMC, most important skills that have worked for me are marketing and social media management and design, strong written and verbal skills in terms of producing content and research, along with strong communication skills, being able to communicate in terms of understanding assignments and when things are not clear, and also communicating with other volunteers and other people on the team. And lastly, I think motivation, just having like a motivation to learn and to understand what's going on, and being really open to engaging in different things, and just being really passionate about the work that you want to do really helps you thrive in an environment. And I think from a youth leader's perspective, what opportunities I usually look for is opportunities where I can learn and grow in an organization and learn new things that I haven't learned before, hopefully, and try to apply my past experiences to the work that I want to do, as well as opportunities for professional development, trying to see ways that I can improve my networking skills and engage from other people and learn from other people in the environment. So just really look out for those two, because I think they really help me in terms of growing my career and moving forward.
Thank you, Nonia.
I could also say something. For me, I think the engagement opportunities I look for is being able to help communities one-on-one. I think being able to, because I think organizations help communities, but I think having that one-on-one dialogue with people is important, because you really get to know their story and what kind of help they need. So I'm always looking for that opportunity.
That's an excellent point. So really looking for opportunities to engage with communities themselves and have that, face-to-face conversations to really learn from a community level about different challenges and gaps and roadblocks. Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point, and really understanding those and helping an organization to fully flush those out makes, the work and the organization that much more impactful. It's an excellent point. Thank you, Vanessa. Does anyone else have any other thoughts that they'd like to share?
I can go. I mean, right now I'm applying for full-time jobs since I'm going to graduate soon. But I think something that I'm really looking for is a company or an NGO that has the same values as I do, and someone who, a company that like really values like diversity and inclusivity. And I think that's what a lot of Gen Z and like younger generation folk are kind of looking for at this point, because we're all like trying to respect each other's beliefs and backgrounds and opinions. So I think that is definitely like high on my list.
Thank you, Teresa. That is, yes. I don't have much more to say other than absolutely 100%. I think that's such an important value to not just have, but to be very transparent and upfront about, and to work hand in hand with young people to improve that and to continually revisit it and make sure that you are being effective and hiring diverse staff and working with communities and addressing issues specific to communities. So thank you for that. That's really impactful. All right. So again, please feel free to input any, or to put any of your ideas and thoughts into the chat box. I'm happy to read those out if you don't feel comfortable sharing live. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So creating entry points for youth engagement. I think, again, there's lots of opportunities from an NGO perspective about how to meaningfully engage with youth activists and other young people who are interested in getting involved. And so These are some ideas for youth activists themselves about how you can make your advocacy interest known and connect with organizations that align with your goals and passions. And just kind of a sidebar to NGOs on the call, these are some of the things that you guys can be on the lookout for as you're identifying potential youth partners. When it comes to creating your own entry point into an advocacy space or a particular organization, one strategy can be to simply request a meeting with a decision maker within an organization that you've identified again as having the same values and mission as yourself. If you do this, you obviously want to introduce yourself clearly and describe the purpose of the meeting and present your ideas concisely, but just meeting with decision makers and with informational interviews and understanding the landscape better from their perspective can be a really impactful way to grow your network and to make your interests known. Another approach to creating your entry point is hosting a public dialogue on this topic and getting decision makers to pay attention. So inviting your audience to attend the dialogue, publicize the event widely to ensure good attendance, and engaging your fellow young people in conversation is a really great way to, again, generate interest and to show that you are dedicated to building advocacy around a specific topic. So researching political and financial commitments that currently exist, making sure that you are, like a lot of people said earlier, making sure that you're up to date on what's happening in the current landscape and being able to speak to that. Another idea, you could circulate a petition to other youth and present it to a policymaker or other decision makers and get their buy-in on that. And lastly, engage with organizations via social media. I think youth are very savvy at social media, and I think that's such an incredible skill set that a lot of other people in the current workforce may not feel that they have. And so that's a huge advantage that the youth activists have. Whether that's tagging organizations that you're interested in your posts, asking questions directly on social media, sharing their content. That's a great way to get noticed and to show that you are actively engaging in content that's being put out. And again, as far as asking questions, ask how you can get involved. Ask if there are opportunities, do your research and make sure that you're responding to requests if organizations do have concrete ways for you to get involved. And I think it's important to note here too, for NGOs, that many youth, want to get engaged in political and civil life within their community. But a lot of research is showing that they are turning to community-based youth organizations. So organizations like SHIFA that are founded by youths themselves, because this helps facilitate, egalitarian relationships between youth and adult leaders. So, when youth do get involved, some NGOs can provide more adult-led participation opportunities that don't leave as much room for youth to feel empowered. And again, this is based on some current research that has been done. So, I think this piece about empowering youth to create their own opportunities and to really make sure that they're being involved and creating real impactful opportunities for not just the organization, but for their own professional development and growth within your organization is really important, and what a lot of the research is pointing towards where the gaps are. So I think that's important for the NGOs here to keep that in mind. Next slide, please. And so this next piece is geared more towards the NGOs on this call, and really building on this idea of storytelling and building participation through storytelling and social media. These are just kind of some best practices around storytelling, and then I am happy to pass along some additional resources, but using the story arc model, which is in all of your communications, having a beginning, a middle, and an end very clearly. You want to, again, stories are compelling. Stories draw people in, and being able to recognize yourself in a story or having a specific call to action is really important to having your messages resonate. You know, there are many ways to tell stories. You can tell the story of self. So an individual story from within the community can share their story and how they got involved. There's the story of us. You can write and show how the organization itself and the members that make up the organization are impacting change. And the story of now. What are you doing now? You know, this can also be expanded to what you hope to do in the future. And again, I think the story of now is a great opportunity to say, this is what we have done, and this is how we want to continue building on this momentum. And this, youth activist, is how you can get involved. These are specific opportunities to raise your voice, or to sign your name to a petition, or organize a rally, or do, you know, X, Y, and Z to get involved with our FGMC related advocacy community, or within our organization specifically. And I think, you know, a common best practice is always make sure you're connecting personal stories to the broader context. So when you know, if perhaps you're highlighting a story of a FGMC survivor, making sure you're connecting it back to the broader context of how this survivor's voice, raising their voice, is helping to end FGMC globally, how it's helping to address stigmatization within their community, how it's helping build intergenerational dialogue, and why that's such a key important piece for ending FGMC. So again, always connecting personal stories to the broader context of FGMC advocacy or gender-based violence. And finally, focusing on positive solutions. You know, we as a community have come together and said, you know, we want to end the practice of FGMC globally by 2030, which is the sustainable development goal. And this is a really positive and obtainable goal, and one that we want to continue putting forward. So again, putting forward positive solutions and really highlighting and empowering people to make positive change in their communities and with your organization. Next slide, please. And social media, this is a great tool for storytelling. And I think it's important here to remind again that it's important for youth leaders to help create youth-focused content. And so in that sense, it's when you are trying to engage with youth activists and young people on social media, it's important to have a plan for what you want to post and instructions for how your supporters can support you, how and when to post and promote your content. I think it's really important to have that spelled out. And so, you know, activists are engaging with you in a meaningful way on both sides. And again, social media is a place to display firsthand content, personal videos and content, resources, concrete ways to get involved. And you can reach out to those who have interacted with your content and invite them to engage further. And again, this kind of goes back to the recommendations for youth activists of engage on social media with organizations that align with your mission and values. And in turn, NGOs recognize those people that are engaging with you regularly. If they're asking questions, respond to them and pull them in further and give them more information and more opportunities to engage. Ask youth activists to share their own stories and experiences in whatever medium they feel comfortable: video, photography, images. And again, important to note that it's always vital to receive consent before posting anything, or sparking up a dialogue about your issue, whether that's posing, you know, specifically asking people to, you know, engage in a conversation and a dialogue on a social media platform, or through a workshop or a webinar like this. And ask your influencers to share your campaign, your message, information on your organization. So all of these are, you know, really great opportunities, specifically within social media, to engage young people that are interested in your mission and getting more involved. So I think, yeah, a major takeaway again is being intentional. Next slide, please. So another opportunity for discussion, and this is specifically geared towards the youth leaders on the call. So I would love to start off by hearing your thoughts, but I'd also, of course, like to open it up to organizational representatives here that would like to ask their questions specifically. But youth leaders, what kind of advocacy content is most compelling to you? What would inspire you to engage with an organization on social media?
I can go. So I think what would be most appealing to me is looking at an account that's color coordinated and organized really brings my attention. If it's not too wordy, usually the posts have like a clear message, maybe like a call to action or sharing a statistic in like one line or a few words short. And I think an interactive platform gives me the opportunity to interact and share my thoughts and more opportunities for learning.
Yes, thank you, Nonya. I think as maybe as straightforward as it may sound, that yeah, the color coordinated with clear message, I think is so important to keep in mind. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was gonna add on that. I agree. The color coordination and just coming across an advocacy page that's coherent really sort of draws me. But also, I think a storytelling component. I know that's what drew me to Shifa the first time I stumbled upon the Instagram page. They had done a couple of videos of people sharing their stories with experience with FGM, and that was really compelling. And that's what sort of drew me in. So seeing other pages like that definitely catches my attention and makes me want to learn more.
So Teresa also mentioned in the chat interactive posts, swipe up links. I think that's also a great reminder, a very great technical reminder of, if you are posting content on social media, it needs to be interactive, it needs to be easily accessible. If there's a call to action, making sure that your links work, if you're calling for people to take a next step, making sure that that next step is clear and that it's easily accessible, I think is an excellent reminder. Thank you, Teresa. Is there anyone in the, oh, Teresa, also posting consistently. That's also a really great point of wanting to see consistent and regular messaging that is, again, coherent and on brand. I think that's really important. Having clear messages, and the part of posting consistently, I think, is also not having your posts trying to do too much in one. You can take, in posting consistently, that means you have the opportunity to post lots of content, but each post is, focusing on one key clear message. I think that's also really important to keep in mind, that you don't need to do everything in one post, that you can take your time to really tease out a specific key point or topic in one post. Are there any representatives from an NGO or an organization that have any questions? You do have some incredible youth activists and young people interested in getting in learning more about FGMC and getting involved. So if you have any questions, please feel free, I think, to pose them now. It'd be a great place to generate more discussion. Okay, no problem. Again, please feel free to put any questions into the chat box. I am happy to pose those at the end. So let's move on to our next slide. And so since there are some, many CCNY students on the call, Nonya and I thought it would be an excellent opportunity for you all to learn about some services and opportunities available at CCNY. And so I believe there's a representative from the Confidential Services for Survivors of Gender-Based Violence on the line that can give more information about the services available and also some opportunities to get involved at CCNY.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie English. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just going to speak really briefly about the confidential services that we provide for CCNY students. So my name is Sophie English, she, her, hers pronouns. I am the psychological counselor, confidential advocate, and I work within the Office of Diversity and Compliance. And I also work very closely with Gender Resources, which is under Health and Wellness. And this is all our contact information. You can go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit more about our services. All of our services are currently being provided remotely. All of our services are confidential. So I provide consultation about Title IX and off-campus reporting options for both employees and students. I provide short-term counseling for students, any students who've experienced any form of gender-based violence. I can also connect with outside community resources. I also work like in partnership with NONIA, doing educational programming, things like this. And Gender Resources also provides short-term counseling for students who have experienced gender-based violence and support for the LGBTQIA+ community, and also assistance with community resources and educational programming. We also have a Gender-Based Violence Awareness and Prevention Alliance that brings together faculty, staff, students at CCNY in preventing and building awareness on gender-based violence issues. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about any of the services or any of the programming. I'll put the initial slide has all my contact information, but I'll also just put my email in the chat too, so you have easy access. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, in a follow-up email, we will be sending around these slides, so you'll have access to that information. But so if you'd like to put that in the chat, that would be incredible. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. Q&A. So again, please feel free to put any questions in the chat box. I'm happy to post them to the group. Or if you feel comfortable, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask it to the group. This is your opportunity to ask, for all the young people on the call, please feel free to ask individuals from organizations about ways, to meaningfully engage them and seek out advocacy opportunities or potential internships or more broad ways to get involved. And on the flip side, individuals from organizations, please feel free to ask questions about best practices for social media or storytelling or connecting with young people about how they want to be engaged. So again, the floor is open to anybody who would like to ask any questions. But I would also like, Nonia, sorry again to put you on the spot, it would be great to hear more from your perspective about what inspired you to be an advocate, and particularly an advocate within the FGMC space, and how you got started to found your own organization.
Yes, thank you so much, Carrie. I'm happy to share a little bit about that. So I first learned about female genital mutilation a few years ago. I learned about it in a classroom setting, and I was also learning about it at home. So I'm originally from Egypt, where 87% of women have undergone FGMC. When I was first learning about it, I was very shocked, especially because of the high statistics, and also that the practice does happen. It's very confusing. And for those of you on the call who aren't aware of the practice, briefly, female genital mutilation is the cutting of the woman's clitoris, sometimes even her labia, and in some cases, a woman is sewn completely shut, leaving one hole for her to urine and menstruate from. So after first learning about the practice, I was eager to find out more about what the practice entails, why does it happen, how can I get engaged? So when I was learning more, I actually became really passionate about trying to do something about the practice. I just didn't really know where to start. So when I came to City College, I found out about their entrepreneurship program, the Zahn Innovation Center, and the Zahn Innovation Center provides opportunities for youth to engage in entrepreneurship by pitching an idea about a problem in the world that they want to fix. So I pitched to advocate against female genital mutilation by conducting educational advocacy workshops. to engage the youth, to advocate against the practice, to try to spread more awareness, because the practice is considered to be very taboo. And I think it's important for us to break those cultural cycles and make a place like this one where we can have conversations about the practice and how we can advocate against it. So I went through the Design Innovation Center, and I went through the competition and their Summer Accelerator, which were both really great opportunities for learning different things like finances, marketing, team management, nonprofit organization. I also got the opportunity to participate in the competition where we won second place, and we earned money, as well as the Summer Accelerator, where I was able to incorporate as a nonprofit organization while being a full-time college student. And from there, I just had like great opportunities to partner with different organizations like the US and FGMC network, who have been so great and so supportive to host this workshop for CCNY students to learn these important tactics and information, as well as other organizations in the US and internationally. And I've had the opportunity to have volunteers who are extremely supportive, like some of them who are on the call today, Talatu and Sarah and a few others who I'm extremely grateful for. And yeah, that's a little bit about me and the organization. I'm happy to answer questions and happy to open the floor up to other youth who are interested in learning more about this, but also about FGMC and advocacy. And I myself do want to continue to explore this space as I start to look for full-time jobs and hope to continue to advocate against the practice in different settings as well.
Thank you so much, Nonya. I really appreciate you talking a bit more about your experience and how you became involved in the FGMC world and all your incredible work that you're currently doing. I am going to put in the chat some resources for people to check out. The Advocates for Youth are an incredible organization that has the most comprehensive and remarkable youth activist toolkit. So if you are a youth activist yourself or an organization looking to work more closely with young people, this is an incredible toolkit that I myself learned a lot from to prepare for this workshop. So I highly suggest you check that out. The next resource in the chat is called Engaging Millennials in Social Causes. It is a study that has some incredible statistics about the millennial generation, so it's a little bit older, and how they are getting involved in social causes and what some of their motivations are and what they're looking for. So this has also been really helpful in kind of helping address some of my gaps in knowledge around what kind of opportunities young people are looking for. Granted, millennials are a little bit older of a generation. And finally, Plan International has a really great resource that highlights what they believe are, quote, the world's best youth campaigns. In this one, they did highlight Greta Thunberg's advocacy campaign against climate change. And so take a look at those. They're examples from all over the world of some really impactful advocacy campaigns that have really centered the voices of young people and empowered them to lead and share their stories through video, through visuals, through social media. So again, some really great examples there that you can take a look at and gain some inspiration from if you'd like. But again, please feel free to input your questions into the chat box or unmute yourself and ask them to the group.
Carrie, do you want to share a little bit about how you got into the FGMC space?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Donia. I'd love to talk about that. So I actually learned about FGMC when I was in graduate school. I got my master's in public health. Sidebar, if anyone is interested in getting their master's in public health, I'm more than happy to talk that through. So I first learned about it from a very academic research perspective. And then I had the incredible opportunity to work at an organization called the Fistula Foundation, which actually was working to increase access to obstetric fistula surgery around the world. And an obstetric fistula is a birth injury. So it's when an individual is in sustained labor and the pressure from the baby's head in the birth canal actually causes a hole in the birth canal, and that causes fecal matter in urine to leak. And so it's a really stigmatizing issue. It's a very sensitive issue. And unfortunately, an obstetric fistula was far more common among people that had undergone FGMC, particularly type 3, which is when all of the outer tissue around the vagina is removed and then the vaginal opening is stitched closed. So this creates very often obstructed labor and therefore an obstetric fistula. So I met many individuals who had undergone both of these and were looking for healing, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And so that was kind of my in-person introduction to this issue, and then working at the FGMC network. It's been an incredible opportunity to continue working with advocates and survivors and service providers in this space. It is a remarkable community full of really passionate, dedicated people like Nonia and the rest of her colleagues at Shifa. So it has been fantastic. I encourage you to take a look at the FGMC Network's website. We have a huge list of resources from legal, legislation in the United States and around the world, advocacy materials, education materials for healthcare providers and other service providers. And I'm happy to put that in the chat box, but I would encourage everyone to take a look at that resource page if you're interested in learning more about FGMC or how you can get involved. So that was a very long-winded answer. Thank you again, Nonia. Does anyone else have any other questions or just things that they would like to share with the group?
Yeah, thank you so much for that background, Carrie. I did have a follow-up question. Just, I know you're going to be sharing the resources, but just wondering what advice you have for youth activists who do want to get more involved in this space, especially for those who are about to graduate college and they want to get involved in advocating against FGMC or other gender-based issues?
That's an excellent question. I think, I graduated with my master's in 2019, so semi-recently. So I very much empathize and understand the stress and the difficulties that come with searching for a job. And I think when it comes specifically to the community like FGMC or gender-based violence, it is a small but mighty community. And so I think doing informational interviews is a really, really valuable exercise for yourself to learn what kind of career opportunities are available to you, whether that's working in a communications and marketing role or a partnerships role. Where your skills and your qualifications as well as your interests, and how could they potentially plug into an organization? In the NGO space, usually the staff is also small but mighty. And so they wear a lot of different hats. My role as operations and partnerships is it encompasses a lot. But that also means I have the opportunity to learn so much and to take on roles and responsibilities that may not necessarily have been in my job description, but are needed because it's a small organization and there's lots of opportunity to learn and to grow and to kind of choose my own adventure in that sense. So I think you get a lot of that really great insight and advice when you do these informational interviews. And that means starting out and doing your research on, it can start with a Google search of organizations working on FGMC, looking and following different individuals and organizations on social media. I think, and reaching out to people, if you don't have email addresses, reaching out through direct messaging on social media is a great way to get in touch as well. So I think just being really diligent about following up with individuals and just asking them. LinkedIn is also a great resource for maybe 20 to 30 minutes of their time, going in with very specific goals and questions of what you want to get out of the meeting. You want to learn more about their day-to-day responsibilities. How did they get involved in FGMC work? What skills are really valuable in their current position? If you're, this might be your first full-time paid job, what skills should you emphasize on your resume, or what skills can you continue building while you're a student? Those are all some really great things to feel out. And again, I think from my experience, young people and young activists that are reaching out and engaging on social media is a really great way to stand out. Asking questions, attending events like this, and always taking the next step to say, how else can I get involved? Where else can I go to get this information? Can you connect me with anyone that can speak to me about X, Y, and Z? What are your recommendations? Again, kind of always taking the extra step to ask those questions and to find out that information is really valuable and doesn't go unnoticed. And again, if there are other individuals from organizations that have any other thoughts or advice to share, I think they'd be really valuable. But again, I think everyone on this call today that is a student is doing all the right things by proactively learning new information and making connections and building your network. So we have a few more minutes. Again, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And also, if you are not comfortable bringing them up, please feel free to reach out to me. I will type my email address in here. If I can spell. Okay. So Carrie at endfgmcnetwork.org. I'm happy to send out more additional resources, or if you would like to be put in touch with anyone here on the call today. So please feel free to send me a message. And thank you everyone for attending today. Please feel free to take a look at resources. There's plethora of knowledge out there, and I hope I can point you in the direction of some of those. And also an enormous thank you to Nonia and the rest of the staff here from SHFA. You are incredible advocates, and you truly inspire, doing really inspiring work. And I thank you for your partnership and for your continued advocacy.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much for having us here today and for your great insight and advice. This has been a great event, I think, and it was great having you all here today. So thank you so much for your time. And please, again, feel free to reach out to us with any questions, and Carrie will share more resources. So thank you so much, Carrie, for your time and your effort in this.
Of course. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And thank you again for being here today.